Hello everyone. I'm not going to say good morning because it's actually afternoon here in the UK. So I had a nice sleep after I did my live stream at 5 a.m. my time about Savannah Soto. So I'm a little bit late recording this video. But I wanted to do this video because I've got an opinion on the King Road residence where Xana, Ethan, Kaylee and Maddie were murdered over a year ago now on the 13th of November 2022. I did watch the house being demolished yesterday. WFLA live streamed it. I thought it was sad watching that roof come down, and I do think that the families, the Canodal and Gonsalves families who wanted the house to remain, I think they do have some valid points. However, the home is owned by the University of Idaho. The owner donated the house to the university, so it's the University of Idaho whose decision it has been to finally demolish the house. Gonsalves and Canodal families have been concerned about the house being demolished because of the potential evidence that it still holds. And I'll read you a section from this article written by Alexandra Duggan, who has been a reporter on this case since before this case was big. So it says, the Gonsalves family attorney, Shannon Gray, wrote a statement on behalf of the family about the decision to demolish the home, in which he writes the house is one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case and that there is still value in keeping it up. There may be additional discovery by either party that prompts one side or the other to go back to the scene of the crime. What a waste of state money and resources, and sadly, nothing replaces the real thing. Jurors are notoriously unpredictable and they tend to make decisions on a variety of facts and circumstances. That's true. The Gonsalves family, with support of the Canodal family, also posted a petition online to keep the home standing. Well, that was unsuccessful because the house is now down. Some on social media have also speculated the house should be standing for jurors to walk through. But Bill Thompson, the lead prosecutor on Kohberger's case, wrote in a December 22 email to the university that the state-led team anticipates no further use of the home. Based on our review of Idaho case law, the current condition of the premises is so substantially different than at the time of the homicides that a jury review would not be authorised. We appreciate the university's help in facilitating the investigators gathering the necessary measurements, etc., to enable creation of illustrative exhibits that should be admissible and helpful to the jury. Jed Whitaker, former deputy prosecutor for Kootenai County, said it's rare to have jury walk through crime scenes anymore because of the advancement in technology. 3D imaging, like the ones the FBI were taking of the home since the homicides, is way more advanced than anything on Google. Some of the 3D imaging law enforcement uses, according to a study from the University College London Department of Security and Crime Science, is able to overlap crime scene photos to the 3D scan of the home or crime area, reconstruct injuries on a body, and even link to a drone for a full view of a street or property. A setback, if the jury did walk through the home, would be that the defendant is required to be there with them, Whitaker said. The defendant has to be present for all aspects of the trial, otherwise it's grounds for an appeal. Well, I don't know about any law and any precedents that have been set in Idaho, but when the jury went to Moselle in the Alec Murdoch case, Alec Murdoch didn't go. His lawyers did, but he didn't go, so I don't know why the law would be different in Idaho than in South Carolina. If he was there, they will associate the house with him. If I was a defence lawyer, I'd object. If I was a prosecutor, I wouldn't go there. Whitaker has tried asking the court for a jury walkthrough multiple times, he said. Every single time he was shut down because of 3D imaging and photographs. Because all the evidence has been processed from the crime scene for trial, Whitaker believes there is no reason he would imagine to keep the house up. He's also interacted with the defence and prosecutors in Kohberger's case during other trials and believes each side are excellent investigative units and will leave no stone unturned. Evidence is what is admitted into trial. You can't admit a house. Okay, I get all that, I do. I would have liked to have seen the house remain standing just in case anything came up that needed to be double checked. Things like measurements. If the prosecution and the defence have done measurements and it's an important argument and there's a dispute, that dispute now can't be settled, can it? So that concerns me a little. It's great, all the technology, all the 3D imagery, but have prosecution and defence both agreed that any 3D imagery that will be shown at trial is accurate? I'd like to have had that agreement from both sides, that the crime scene has been retained in a form that is both admissible and accurate, and they're not going to dispute it, and there's not going to be some delay of the trial or some, snappy way that the defence can get Kohberger off because of some kind of technicality or other. Obviously, that would be worst case scenario. So it does concern me in that regard. I don't know what benefit a jury walkthrough would have. When I was a jury member on a murder trial in my country, here in the UK, back in 2020, we didn't go to the scene. We were told not to visit the scene, in our own time. But what they gave us was a bunch of photos, videos, CCTV, videos of the street in daytime, in nighttime. And because the murder happened on a street, it was easy to visualise what that scene looked like based on the information that was presented that had been previously agreed by both sides. So I don't think it's necessary for a jury to go to a crime scene. And I think they're right in that these days, the vast majority of juries don't go to crime scenes. But Steve Gonzalez made a good point recently on an interview. I think it was on News Nation. I can't remember now. And he said it's not necessarily the house. The house is very different now. But it's like things like vantage points and what could the killer see looking through particular windows. And I don't know how well those kind of questions that a jury might have would be answered with a 3D model. So we don't know whether that 3D model includes the outside of the house and the local environment. Is it just inside the house? I think it is just inside the house. So there are things that do concern me with removing the house because of that just in case scenario. The prosecution have asked for the trial to be set sometime during the summer of 2024, so in about 6-7 months' time. I guess the other thing I want to discuss is from the university's standpoint. I can't find any immediate links between Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, and the University of Idaho in recent years. He's a graduate from the University of Idaho, graduated from their College of Law back in 1980, and he's been a Latah County prosecutor since 1992. So he's a long-standing kind of member of Latah County. He's very well respected. Not heard any major controversies about him. There might be some that I haven't seen. So I'm reasonably confident that what Bill Thompson's office have decided not to object to the University of Idaho demolishing the house, I have to believe, because I don't have any evidence to the contrary, that they're doing it because of what they believe are sound legal reasons, that a jury wouldn't benefit from a walkthrough. Actually, it might be detrimental for the jury to walk through the house because it's not the same as it was. But notwithstanding the points I've already made, which do concern me, unless both sides can say, yes, we agreed that these measurements and these images and these models are accurate. And then I'd be fine, I think. I did have a look at the university, the president, because there's always a little bit of dirt on university presidents. And I've worked at 2 different universities in the UK, and I had dealings with quite a few others, from collaborations, from being an external examiner, and they're all the same. They're all the same. They're all motivated by money. their public relations team work hard to keep their standing good in the community. Because the media are, certainly in the UK, don't know what it's like in the US, I expect it's the same. If there is any dirt on a university president, then the media's pretty quick to pick up on it. There's a lot been said in recent years in the UK about the wages, the salaries of the leaderships of universities. But this is the University of Idaho's president's page. It doesn't say very much about him at all. This is just something he wrote. As a graduate of the University of Idaho, I first-hand experience with the Vandal success story. I'm looking forward to building on our accomplishments in the years to come. Okay, but I did find this a little bit more about him. C. Scott Green faced a career crossroads this year. So this was 2019. Should he stay in New York City as an executive with an international law firm or return to his home state as university president? A friend in the legal profession broke it down for Green in stark terms. So I wonder whether Bill Thompson and Green know each other and they've both given each other the nod, you know. I don't know. Obviously, you're not going to find any evidence of that. And what could it mean even if you did? He could stay put and help law partners get richer, or he could change the lives of tens of thousands of college students. Oh, it's all about students. It's all about student experience. No, it isn't. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It's all about money. Retention of students, recruitment of students. It's all about money. Because they're a business, all right? There's nothing wrong with that. They're a business. Of course it's all about money. So Green is moving across the country and taking a pay cut, even though the University of Idaho will pay him $420,000 per year. What are hours on? About when I last worked at university, I think the Vice-Chancellor, who's the head of the university, was on about $270. That's less than him. He says he will have no career backup plan, and the University of Idaho faces myriad challenges, staff morale, and a recent enrollment drop. Bum, bum, bum. An athletic department in disarray, so why do it? I don't like what's happened over the last 10 years. I think I can help, Green said in a recent interview. And he's a non-traditional choice because he doesn't even have a doctorate. He's not an academic. He's a businessman. He got an MBA from Harvard in 1989, was a non-lawyer who ran law firms. He was non-academic in charge of a university. He sees some common themes, some common management strategies. You know, he's been brought in as a mover and shaker in the business world. You know, the University of Idaho in 2019 had a crisis on its hands, enrollment drop. So bring in the big guns, all right? Have a change of pace and bring in the big guns. And there does appear to be a little bit of controversy this year. This is the United States Senate writing to President Scott Green. It has come to our attention that the University of Idaho system has agreed to purchase the for-profit University of Phoenix. Given Phoenix's long record of poor student outcomes, deception of veterans, and entanglements in federal investigations and enforcement actions, we urge you to reconsider the implications of acquiring Phoenix, which could cause great harm to students and taxpayers, not only in Idaho, but also across the country. Many for-profit colleges have a long history of preying on vulnerable students, including veterans, low-income students, and students of colour. Phoenix is no exception, and it goes on. It's demonstrated a pattern of predatory and abusive behaviour. So, the University of Idaho, it appears, were in the process of acquiring the University of Phoenix. The university's enrolment is just under 7,000 students, while Phoenix enrolls more than 65,000 students. What are University of Idaho's plans to improve outcomes for Phoenix's students and address the 7 programs at Phoenix that currently are failing the gainful employment rule? And it goes on. So that was back in September, 3 United States senators wrote to him, will the new entity have University of Idaho or Phoenix branding? Which entity would lead marketing and recruitment efforts? A bunch of questions from the United States Senate. Now, I don't know whether the acquisition of the University of Phoenix has been done. But in my experience, when universities acquire other potential controversial business entities, it can go drastically and dreadfully wrong, and then the university will cover up. I don't know. I don't know what's happened in this case. Maybe it's too early to tell. I just thought it was interesting that I found that letter. So what about recruitment? Well, recruitment was failing in 2019, but it appears to be up, according to the University of Idaho. The freshman class entering the University of Idaho this fall is the second largest in the recorded history of the university, with 1,869 new students enrolled, slightly below last year's largest class of 1951. So enrollment has dropped for freshers. Retention first to second year is up 1.4%, showing the results of strategic effort to keep students progressing. Okay, overall student enrollment for fall 2023 is 11,849 students, up from 2022 enrolments of 11,507. So I don't know where these people get the university enrolment is just under 7,000, because neither of these figures match that, but I don't know. This is University of Idaho itself. So last fall, they had a record number of freshers enrolling, and it's dropped only slightly, but still, any reduction, universities don't like it. So they're thinking, ooh, has the quadruple murder affected our figures? Well, if it has, not by much. However, what I wanted to look at are the tuition fees. Now, in the UK, our tuition fees are capped at £9,250 per year. Most universities charge that. They go right up to the max because there's a lot of money in students. And to be fair, university towns with universities do well. Universities employ a lot of people. The University of Idaho employs 4,500 people. It's not just the academic staff. You've got to think about things like security, gardeners, cleaners, catering staff. Moscow, Idaho is heavily invested in the university. If the university fails, Moscow also fails. The majority of employees who are maybe non-academic, lower-level paid staff will be living in Moscow or its surrounding areas. So if the university fails, Moscow fails. Not just employees either. Look at the amount of money that the students bring in to Moscow. It's a lot. So the local businesses, it goes all the way up the chain. They don't want a university to fail. All right, so full-time student fees. $8,816 for Idaho residents. So if you're a resident of Idaho, your tuition fees are low. That's low. That's way lower than our tuition fees. However, if you're a non-Idaho resident, you pay $28,052. And then there's this scheme here of paying $12,000. So essentially less than half, but even more than that. But $28,052. So who do they want to attract? Who would they rather attract? And their acceptance rate is about 74%. So they accept 74% of potential students who apply. So that's pretty high. They are pushing recruitment, right? They're pushing it. And they've seen a reduction. Now, who would they rather come to study at the University of Idaho? Who would they rather have? Whose fees would they rather have? Would they rather have Idaho residents, or would they rather have non-Idaho residents? If you can't work that out, I don't know what to tell you. They'd rather have non-Idaho residents. Okay. Well, what this doesn't tell me is how many students who've enrolled this year versus last year are Idaho residents versus non-Idaho residents. It's for graduate courses, and that's for law. Look at how much you're paying to go to law school there. Again, note that the non-Idaho residents are paying twice as much almost. I want to know, and I can't find this information. So if anybody can find this information, I'd be very pleased to see it. Because what I'd like to know is how many of their new freshers are Idaho residents compared to non-Idaho residents, and I'd like to see the same figures for last year. The demolition of 1122 King Road, I am sure, is down to money. It's not about healing. The community ain't going to heal before this case is over. What the University of Idaho, in my opinion, does not want to have is another PR disaster, because it might not affect Idaho residents coming to study at the University of Idaho because they're getting low fees. But what it might do is discourage non-Idaho residents from sending their kids there because of the huge amount of media interest in this case. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's all about money. So I'd like to know that answer, because I bet you any money the University of Idaho's decision to demolish that house is about negative PR that they can envision when the trial goes ahead, because it will be another round of media, YouTubers going to that house, standing outside of that house, doing news reports outside of that house. They don't want it another year. Could be another 2 years because the trial could be delayed. We don't know. So it's all about money. And that's all I want to say on the matter. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.